Okay, this is Mike O'Neill, and we're going to talk about video number 7 now, and we're going to talk about move into our post-retirement or our retirement and distribution phase of this. You know, when you climb your financial mountain, there's two sides of it. One is the accumulation phase, which a lot of people write about, and the distribution phase, which fewer people write about actually. But it's rarely all in one place. And this is one of the reasons why I wrote the book that I did and doing this video series is so we can talk about both sides of this. The retirement, the distribution phase is very, very important, right? It's the second phase. At this point, what's happened is you've accumulated a good chunk of money, right? You've worked on your debt. You've probably been at a job or maybe several jobs for the past several years. So now you think, okay, I'm ready to retire. All right. And it's good to think about what is retirement, right? Is it just spending money? I mean, spending money is a good part of it, right? You know, it's a fun part of it. But we really need to think about what our retirement needs to look at. Yeah. Yeah, we need to think about it. You see, a lot of times people don't really get concerned about or they don't really understand or they think about retirement. All right. So when people start thinking about retirement, they get confused or they get concerned, I guess would be a better word, about some other things. A lot of those have to do with money. You have questions like, am I going to have enough money to live on? Right? You know, that's a concern. You know, am I going to outlive my money? Yeah. Yeah. What's going to happen to my investments if something happens to me? You know, do they go away? Do they go to my spouse? Do they go to my heirs? What kind of problems am I creating for them? Is there going to be tax implications in dealing with that? What's going to happen to my investments if something should happen to me? Right? Should I try to leave a financial legacy to my heirs? Right? Some people say, yeah, you know, I really want to. And other people say, no, you know, what I want to do is I'm going to spend every last dime that I have. Other people, again, are going to decide, hey, you know, what I want to do is maybe give my money to a charity. Right? You know, so the financial side of retirement, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And we need to think about the financial side of retirement, what we're going to do. However, it's not the only questions that we need to answer. Yeah, it's not the only questions. Um, some other questions that we need to think about is what should my retirement look like? Okay, what should it look like? Some people think, well, when I retire, I'm going to keep working, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to work at a job. I'm going to work at a position that I want to do. You know, I don't have to worry about money. I'm going to do a hobby and see if I can pull in some additional income just from that hobby. Okay, you know that's cool. Other people say I'm not working. No way. You know, I'm going to go play golf every day. Okay, that's cool. But we need to think about what retirement is going to look like. You know, now I like to think about retirement as every day is a Saturday, right? So instead of getting up on Monday morning and having to go to work, every day is a Saturday. What do you do on Saturday? Well, you get up and you think, what do I want to do today? I mean, if you want to work, you go to work. If you don't want to work, you don't. If you want to go down to the golf course, you do. If you want to go fishing, you do. You end up doing what you want to do. And this is kind of what I think about retirement is I'm going to do what I want to do. That may be recreational activities. It may be I want to do some work. It may be that I want to play golf. It may be I want to travel. Okay. So we need to think about this and we need to talk about this. Some people talk about, well, a pretty good analogy is that when you're thinking about retirement and what your retirement should be, it's like baking a cake. What are your ingredients? What are we going to do? What kind of cake are we going to make? How are we going to do this? Right? You know, these kind of things. Right. You also need to talk to your spouse, your significant other, or think about what some of these decisions mean. So, for instance, let's say that you decide you want to travel. I want to travel. What does that mean? You're going to travel how? You're going to travel on a cruise ship? Oh, that means that what you're going to do is you're going to go primarily to coastal cities, right? There's a certain amount of expense that go dealing with that, right? So if you travel on a cruise, that's certainly one way of doing it. Are you going to go see the country in an RV? Cool. Right? Do you have the truck? Do you have an RV? Are you going to have to buy one? Right? Are you experienced with driving something like that? You know, have you thought about doing this? And are you okay with traveling in an RV? Right? Because some people, my dad, my folks, particularly my dad, thought traveling in an RV was awesome, absolutely wonderful. right? Because it gave him an opportunity to go to the mountains. He would wake up in campgrounds. He didn't have to worry about what he was wearing that day, and things of this nature. So much so that he was a camp host for 15 years during his retirement, right? He loved traveling in an RV. Other people go, no way, no way. Traveling in an RV where we have to set up camp every night? No, 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 no. The worst case when I travel, the worst case is going to be, Holiday Inn. I'd really rather prefer to stay in 4-star and 5-star hotels, right? That's different. And it's going to take a different amount of money in order to do that. So we need to think about, geez, what's our retirement going to look like? And while you're doing that, you may find out that, you know what? It's kind of different. It's kind of different. There's some people that choose, what I want to do is I'm going to play golf every day. So for the first 6 months, what they do is they play golf and they get bored with playing golf, right? They end up going back to work and they figure out this has left them fulfilled, right? Other feel like, geez, I've worked 9 to 5 all my life. I want to go sit on the couch. So they sit on the couch and watch daytime TV. Ugh. Yeah, yeah, not very good about that. I've noticed one or two things tend to happen to people when they retire. One, they blossom, they bloom into the person that they've never been because, they finally now have the opportunity to do the things that they've always wanted to do. Yeah. The second thing that happens to people when they retire is they die because their entire life was tied up in their job and now they don't know what happened. So this is something that we need to do. We talk about needing to be mentally prepared for retirement, and that's tough. Now, I would advise you go get a book. There's a book written by Ted McClyman, right? And the book is called Confessions of a Reformed Financial Advisor. Yep, it's pretty much BS. Right. So go get that book because that's going to deal with the mental aspects of retirement. Okay, so get that book. It's a good book. It'll help you to get prepared for that. Now, when I talk about the mental aspects of being retired, this is like I say, an important deal. My wife retired about 3 years ago. Yeah, yeah, and she was ready. She was ready. She retired and never had any problem. Um, Me, not so much. I thought I was getting ready to retire, but gosh, I really wasn't ready, mentally ready. I started asking questions. You can call it the fear of losing the income, the fear of losing a security blanket of the contacts that I had, the contracts that I had, the fear of losing my self-worth. I don't know. It took me 3 years, 3 years to decide I want to retire and then to actually get to a mental aspect of where I could. It took me 3 years. Yeah, I finally got to the point where I realized that, yeah, you know what, retirement or work is kind of cutting in on my snow skiing time and the time I want to playing pickleball and the time I want to spend doing other things. Right? Yeah, yeah. But it doesn't happen overnight. Remember, it took me 3 years. Yeah. So those are some of the things you need to do. You need to think about the mental aspect of retirement. Now, the next thing that you want to think about doing is how are you going to get your money? Because you have a nest egg, right? And that's what retirement's all about. It's a nest egg. No, no, that's not what retirement's all about. You see, the nest egg is very important. Yeah, but what's really important when it comes to retirement, what's really important is income. Income, just like when you were working, what was one of the things that was very important was income. The nest egg is important because of the income that it can generate, right? So remember, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And there's two things that are going to really play a role in what you get to keep. Those two things are taxes and inflation. Taxes and inflation. Now, in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about government issues and dealing with retirement and what happens there, right? But inflation can be a big deal. Now, you might think about, well, inflation, what do you mean? Well, it means that every year the cost of goods and services go up. So $1,000 this year is not going to buy what $1,000 worth of goods next year because of inflation. Well, how do I figure that in? Inflation typically is somewhere between 3 to 4% per year. Now, some years it's much more than that, some years it's less than that. But inflation over the past, I don't know, 60, 70 years has been somewhere around 3 to 4%. So you can probably figure on 3 to 4%. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you have $1,000, what's that going to be worth next year? Well, it's going to be worth $970 to $960. Right? You're going to lose 30 to $40 worth of buying power with that inflation. And that's going to happen every year. Okay. So your nest egg is important, but how you pull these things out becomes very, very important. So let's talk about one, how do we beat inflation? Well, there's a certain amount of our money that what we want to do is we don't want to put it just in cash. Because cash, what happens is that cash loses money every year in buying power because of inflation. Hmm. Okay. So what do? You put a certain amount of the nest egg that we have into things that's going to grow. All right. So the way that we deal with this is I call it the bucket theory. The bucket theory. Yeah. So what's a bucket theory? Well, basically what it means is that you put your money in three different buckets. Three different buckets. All right. Now, these buckets have names. All right. The first bucket is called the needed now bucket. The now bucket, right? This is money that we're going to need now to live on. We want that to be very, very safe. We want that to be not subject to the whims of the market. We don't want that bucket to go down 10, 20, 30% this year. All right. So we have the now bucket. You might put that into a money market fund. You could put into it in CDs, could put it just into a interest bearing savings account. Right. But this is the now bucket. This is going to cover your basic expenses now. This is going to come from different areas. Right. But what is important is income, and we want to make sure that that now bucket is going to produce you income for the next couple of years. All right. So that's the now bucket. The middle bucket is the soon bucket. Soon bucket. This is money that we're going to need soon. Don't need it right now. That's what the now bucket is, but money that we're going to need soon. So what's in this bucket? Well, this is money that you're going to need in 5 to 10 years. Okay. And obviously, every year, what we're going to do is we're going to reallocate these buckets, right? So the soon bucket is money that you're going to need in the next 5 to 10 years. This is money that you're sitting in accounts. You want to see that accumulate. It's got to be sitting into a some kind of an interest bearing. You may be sitting it into the market, depending on your feelings for some of these type things. You want this to grow. You want this to grow, okay? Because you're not going to need it for 5 years or so. Okay. And then the third bucket is called the long term bucket. The long term bucket. This is the bucket that you're not going to need for a long time. So, this is the thing that's going to be in the market. These are the things that you want to grow. This is the stuff that what we want to do is we may pass on to our heirs. Okay. So, we need to think about those three things. And as we think about these three buckets, right? And again, we're going to reallocate these every year. Right. So what happens is that every year, at least once a year, we look and we reallocate these buckets. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the now bucket just for a minute. We'll talk about some of the other buckets later. But let's talk about the now bucket. This is money that we need now for income that's going to cover our basic needs. All right. Now, it's not, it used to come from your job, right? And you don't have a job anymore, right? So you may choose to work in retirement, and that's fine, right? But it's not going to be probably your full income. So where does this come from? Well, it's probably going to come from two different sources. One is going to be guaranteed income. Ooh, I like that. I like those words, guaranteed income, right? Secondly, it's going to come from variable income. Okay, so where is that? Where is that in that now bucket? Guaranteed income, one, Social Security. Yeah, Social Security. So if you've worked, for years and years, you're going to be getting, when you turn 65, you're going to be getting, or actually 62, you can get a reduced number, right? So what's going to happen is you're going to get Social Security. Now, some people says Social Security is not going to be around. Or, you've read the things, some of the information of where Social Security is only going to be worth about 72% of what it's worth right now. Yeah, I really don't think that's going to happen. Because from a political standpoint, um, yeah, that would really hurt a lot of politicians. And if politicians care about nothing else, they care about getting reelected. So they're going to continue to provide Social Security, I really believe. All right. So they're going to pay Social Security. Now, the way Social Security works, if you generated a lot of income while you were working, your Social Security is going to get bigger. If you generated less income while you were working, you paid in less, you're going to get paid less. That's the way Social Security works. But it was always meant to be a supplement. It was never meant to be the entire thing that you're going to need for your retirement. Now, let's think about what that means. And, the average amount of Social Security that in the United States today is somewhere around a little over $18,000 a year per person. Can you live on $18,000? I can't. But so it's a supplement. It's a supplement, but that's going to come in every year. And there's going to be some cost of living adjustments that come into that, but typically they're, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2%. They're not great. So what's going to happen is that is, however, guaranteed income. Cool. Cool. Is there another type of guaranteed income that I can create? Yes, one that you can actually create. One is called an immediate annuity. Now, I'm typically not a real fan of annuities. And the reason is an annuity is an insurance product. I've never seen one, personally, I haven't seen one that has actually produced what they said it would produce as far as interest. But that's me. That's me. Your mileage may vary. But what I have seen is something called an immediate annuity, which creates a guaranteed source of income forever, or it could be forever. Okay. So what happens is that you are going to go and give to the insurance company a certain bunch of money. This can be all in a lump sum, or it can be over a period of time. Right. But basically what happens is that you're giving the insurance company a bunch of money. It's not backed by the FDIC. It's just backed by the insurance company. So you need to be careful about the insurance company that you provide. All right. Now, so what you do is you put your money into this insurance company, and then they turn around and they will pay you a guaranteed income every month. Now, depending on how you structure that, that could be a guaranteed income for the rest of your life. Could be a guaranteed income for the rest of your life, or for your spouse's life. Could be a guaranteed income for a specific period of time, 5 years or 10 years, and obviously the payouts will be different. So what are we talking about? Well, let's think about this. Suppose if you put $200,000 into an immediate annuity to start being paid out immediately, right? So next month. So you give the insurance company $200,000. Say you're somebody that's my age, 66. I want that for my entire life, regardless of how long I live, whether I live to be 67 or 97. They're going to pay that out every month for the rest of my life. That $200,000 is going to pay me a little more than $1,000 a month. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So wait a minute. Let's think about that. There's a break even point there, right? Yeah. And that break even point, if you took $200,000 and divided by 1,000, that's roughly 200 months, which is about 16.7 years. Yeah. Almost 17 years. Yeah. So are you going to live more than 17 years? If you are, and you want that guaranteed income, then you might think about getting an immediate annuity. If you're not sure, then maybe not. And you keep the money and pull it out as you want to, as variable or voluntary income. Okay. So those are two sources of guaranteed income that I have used and it's worked out very, very well for me. And that is Social Security and your immediate annuities. Now, something else that can come out of the now bucket is some money that you have said, this is going to be voluntary. So this is amount of money that I have pulled out of my retirement accounts. This could be a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, mutual fund, stocks, rental property, if you have any, something of this nature, right? So this is voluntary, though. This is not guaranteed by anything, right? But you're going to be pulling it out of some of those different accounts. Now, what some people think about, if I pull it out of an IRA, that's going to be 100% taxable. It's going to raise my taxes. So they think maybe I'll pull it out of the Roth. Okay. Now, I think taxes are going to go up in the future. So what I am going to tend to do is I'm going to tend to pull things out of my traditional IRA, not my Roth. Okay. So that means that Yes, I'm going to have to pay taxes on it in this year, as ordinary income. By the way, you have to pay taxes on your Social Security and your variable annuity as well, depending on how you put that in. All right. So what I'm going to have to do is, yes, I'm going to pull money out of my traditional IRA out of mine for my now bucket, but I have some control over that. Because what I'll tend to do is I'll pull money out of that right up to the tax bracket that I'm currently in and not anymore. Right. We're also going to talk about something called the IRMA cliff and things of this nature. So this we need to think about how we're going to draw this money out and when we're going to draw this money out, because all of those has tax implications. But because it is voluntary, you get to have some amount of control, not complete control, but you get to have some amount of control of how much money you pull out and how much in taxes you're going to have to pay. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about the other buckets, as we go in. Now, our next video that we're going to talk about is going to the government issues that you need to be aware of. Okay. All right. So again, I'm Mike O'Neill, Money Coach. I appreciate you listening.